Hello, hello. Thank you for joining me today. This is the Spicy Pecan Podcast.
Have you ever had a dream that you could do so you could.
Hey guys, we are back again. Why do I say we? Like there's a whole team behind me. That's a little bit of a bad habit. Thank you for joining me. So, lot going on and nothing going on at all. One of the first things I wanted to talk about was the reopening. So, a lot of states are, beginning to restart the economy and get us back to work. Please do not be confused that somehow means that the coronavirus is no longer alive and well, because it is. And really my question to you is, what has changed? What has changed from the day that you were told to quarantine? More cases. So trust and believe that this is not over. It is extremely important to still be vigilant. As you can see in the news, Dr. Fauci himself, as he is telling us to get back to work and possibly reopen schools, he is doing his news conferences from home. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but where's Trump? Trump is MIA. You know why? Because the virus has somehow trickled into the White House and into his close staff, his security. So I get it. I get why people think that just because they tell you that the barbershops are open and the beauty salons are open, that somehow everything's okay. No, it's not. It's not. And if anyone's telling you something different, they're wrong. So in good conscience, I cannot sit here and make it seem like this is not the exact same virus that it was when we first heard about it. An invisible killer. Okay? And while you have Congress and senators and all these people talking about opening up our doors and go back to work and we need to jumpstart the economy, make sure that you're looking at where they are when they're telling you to do this. Because I guarantee you they're not giving the same advice to their family, their friends. They're not. So please do not be confused. Cuomo actually, he kind of said it best. I was watching the news conference today being May 12th. Cuomo was saying, he was talking about the importance of wearing a mask. It is very important to wear a mask. Stop thinking of it as something that's not cool or I don't need it or whatever. No, a mask says that I respect you. And you wearing your mask says that you respect me. It says that you respect the fact that I can infect other people, my family and friends, that you can infect other people, I can infect you. The mask says that I respect healthcare workers because they are putting their lives on the line. So I am not going to be a part of spreading something that I can easily prevent. And I'm really, really sick of people saying, I don't have it. Have you taken a test? Because you don't know if you have it or don't have it if you have not been tested. These are just regular things. But as I drive around, I see people so cavalierly walking around as if there is nothing going on. We cannot do this. Please, if I'm the only person that is telling you this, listen. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. Okay? And it's so disheartening to see people just really be so cavalier about this. People getting to arguments with folks at grocery stores and Walmarts because you're being told to wear a mask. I mean, the fact that the government actually had to mandate the fact that people needed to wear masks blows my mind. Why do you need the government to tell you to protect yourself? If you look at any of your favorite celebrities, where are they at? They're home. You know why? Because they actually value their lives. Oprah went on a whole rant about how she would not let one of her family members into her house. Mind you, Oprah has a compound. She would not let a family member into her house because this is the reality of what we're dealing with. Just because you know someone doesn't mean anything. Please respect yourself the same way the president and Fauci and everyone else respects themselves. Well, not so much the president. I mean, actually, I can even understand why people are confused, because when you have a leader who refuses to wear a mask, refuses to have the people around him wear a mask, yeah, I can see where people will get confused and think, you know what? Maybe this is a hoax. Maybe this does have to do with 5G. Maybe this does have to do with something other than what it actually is, which is an invisible killer that can kill you or someone that you care about. And I do not want people to wait until it's a neighbor or a family member or a best friend for you to get it. Value your life, please. And if you don't value your life, value the life of the essential workers. Don't give people a hard time. You know, people are going to work scared as hell right now. People are forced to go to work. People that work at like Walmart and grocery stores, you think all those people feel comfortable going to work than to have you come in giving them a hard time? Because they're telling you to protect themselves, which i.e. protects them? Come on. So, obviously, you know, I have to talk about the Ahmaud Arbery story. It's so incredible. It is so incredible. I'm tired. I know everybody else is tired. The one thing that I have seen that has at least given me some hope is outrage from people that do not look like Ahmaud. That is progress to me, because you cannot get anywhere in with these type of subjects where we're talking about racism, we're talking about tensions. You cannot get anywhere without people on the other side, people who it doesn't really affect, to care. And I have seen a lot of outrage. That is progress to me. On the other hand, we have also seen where people are just completely ignorant. D.L. Hughley actually mentioned it. He said, Black people are the only people who are blamed for their own murders. And in this case, we can kind of see that happening on the news. He was in the house. He was doing this. I don't care if he lit the house on fire. I don't care if he robbed the house. Day in court. That is what the justice system is for. You don't get to hunt people down and be judge and jury. You don't get to do that at all. If this was even remotely the other way, there's no way that these guys would have stayed a minute in their house after it happened. We all know the details of the case. We really need to use this again as a learning tool. Ahmaud is the name we know about. This is happening all the time. All the time. It's not an isolated case at all. If you think that it is, you are living under a rock. Why do you think thousands of Black people get together and say Black Lives Matter and our lives matter? Don't kill us. They're not doing that because they don't have better things to do. They're doing it because this happens all of the time, on smaller scales and on the extreme scale where someone actually gets killed. But even on the smaller scale, it's happening all the time. All these little incidents of, what are you doing in this neighborhood? If you look at someone and you say to yourself, what are you doing in this neighborhood? Something is wrong there. Something is wrong there. That is a problem. Listen, we can go on and on about this. I mean, if we actually even talk about the history of lynching, we're not so far removed from that time. I mean, just 1860 to 1960, thousands of people were lynched. Thousands. 1960. That was not that long ago. We are dealing with these issues every day. So if you are someone of the other race and you have thought to yourself, I wish people would just get over it. I wish people would stop talking about racism. If you get over it, then it'll go away. That's not the case. That is not the case. Rest in peace to Ahmaud. Rest in peace to all of the people that we have lost in the last couple of days. Little Richard. I lost my great-grandmother about a week and a half ago on my mother's side. Just rest in peace to everyone. We're losing a lot of people, guys. A lot of people. Wake up. On a lighter note, Erykah Badu and Jill Scott, did anybody see the Verzuz? Oh my gosh, we needed it so bad. And you know what? I'm not even a fan of Jill Scott. I feel like she sings about food too much. Grits, cheese, eggs. I like her. I like her acting. But I could never get with her music. Erykah Badu, I've always loved her. Loved the style, loved everything about her. But I have to say that Verzuz definitely opened my eyes up a lot more to Jill's music. So if you haven't watched it, it's about 2.5 hours long, 3 hours long. Feel good the entire way through. If you were a fan of R&B, if you were a fan of sisterly love, it was fantastic. And it was so, so needed. So thank you so much, ladies. Like, we really, really needed that. And then we obviously just had Mother's Day this past weekend. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. My mom was actually set to be on the show, but she wasn't feeling too good. So we're going to give her a pass this time and just make sure that she is on another time. But I wanted to tell a story in honor of my mom. As a lot of people, may know, I'm gay. I'm a lesbian. And when I came out to my mom, I did not know what to expect. In fact, I didn't even plan on coming out. I hadn't said anything to anyone, and it just came out. I was having a conversation with my mom. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was looking outside of a window in my apartment in North Jersey when I was still attending Fairleigh Dickinson University. And me and my mom were talking about someone that I had dated in the past. And I said, Mom, people say that he's gay. And I just started bawling. And my mom is like, what's wrong, Nina? What's going on? And I said, Mom, I think I'm gay. No, I know I'm gay. Literally just like that. And there was a long pause. I didn't hear crying. I didn't hear a peep. And then her first response to me was, I love you, and we will find her together. That is the woman that I come from. Mom, I love you dearly. We fight like cats and dogs, but we love each other just as hard. I was going through a really, really hard time this week. We're all going through our things. This situation has really, reared its ugly head in ways in our lives that, I wasn't expecting. But anyway, I was having a really, really hard week. And I had to remind myself, my mom was a single parent raising 2 children pretty much on her own. There were times where she had to take 3 buses to get us to daycare and to school, and then for her to go to work just to turn around and take another 3 buses to get us all home. I mean, just the incredible strength that she showed at such a young age. I can't even imagine. And I just had to remind myself, Nina, you come from stock. You come from very strong stock on both sides of your family. Very strong men and women who have dealt with the craziest of life trials, addiction, abuse, the criminal justice system. So many different things that my family has endured, and we still stand strong today, and we are a very close family. So with that being said, today we are actually going to be interviewing a genealogist, Shamele Jordan. We're very, very lucky to have her. She is fantastic in the work that she does, and she is a brilliant speaker, wealth of knowledge. I am so excited that she decided to do the show. I was actually a little nervous. Very cool to have her. But I just wanted to share that about my family, because in what Shamele does in genealogy, understanding where you come from, understanding your roots can give you such an enormous wealth of strength, like a reserve that you keep inside yourself that you can tap into at any moment. When it was hard for me this week, and I'm telling you, yesterday was very hard, very hard. I literally had to remind myself, Nina, you come from the people that survive. There is nothing that can stop you. So I hope you enjoy the interview. Now seems like the perfect time for a commercial break. If the coronavirus has done anything at all for a lot of us, it's made us realize that we are financially unprepared. Now is the time where you should be sitting down and figuring out, how am I going to ensure that my family never goes through anything like this again? If you are reliant on an unemployment check, if you are reliant on funds that are coming from outside of yourself, we don't know when that money's going to dry up. We don't know how long that's going to sustain us. Never allow anyone to determine your family's financial future. Now is the time to begin planning on your future and how you can make sure that you are set up for success. Contact the show to be connected with a licensed professional in your state to discuss all of your options. Shamele, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so lucky to have you. Super excited to have you on the show. I, of course, know who you are, but just for anyone who doesn't, can you just briefly go over your background and how you were called to genealogy?
Sure. So I consider myself a genealogist. I'm a producer of the award-winning Genealogy Quick Start, produced at Philly Cam in Philadelphia. And I'm also a technology consultant. And the way I got into genealogy is through family, through my cousin. My cousin Floyd started doing genealogy, and it really piqued my interest.
Okay. All right. So just talk to me about those initial stages of you jumping in. Did you just kind of help him on projects that he was working on, or maybe your own personal family tree, or how'd you like really jump in?
So he would go down south and he would come back, like he'd go to Georgia, and, because back then, they couldn't get on the internet. This was right after Roots. So when Alex Haley's Roots came out, it really sparked genealogy in this country and throughout the world. Like, that is the pivotal kind of what made genealogy popular. They say number 2 popularity to porn online. I don't know if that's but he was like a lot of others, and he helped to start a genealogy group here in Philadelphia called the African American Genealogy Group. And I started hanging out with them. I would go on trips with him, like you said, from time to time. And eventually in 2003, when the 1930 census was made available. That's when I started my own body of research, and I was hooked.
Awesome. So, in your experience, what have been kind of like maybe top 2 or 3 reasons why people come to you to begin their search?
Well, ancestry.com has proven that, the majority of people are interested in knowing what their ethnicity is. What made me up? Like, what came together to make me? We all want to know that. A genealogist, or most people who will hire a genealogist, have specific questions. African Americans in general, because of slavery, they want to know who the slave owner was. Other people might have specific family stories that they want to prove or disprove. People who are from Europe, they
Mhm.
want to know, where did I come from in Europe? Which city did I come from? A lot of people don't know that. They just know a country. We think everybody knows what city they came from. They don't know. There's a guy who's like he's a top researcher in a specific ethnicity. He still does not know which town specifically his ancestors came from.
Wow. Wow. So, that kind of prompts me, are there any challenges to finding the background for specific ethnicities?
So yeah, every group, just like in like every group has their challenges. For African Americans who were enslaved, it's slavery, because we were not considered people. So when we were referenced, we could have been just referenced by age group. I have three Black women between the ages of 18 and 23 or something, or just by first name. Like I said, people who come from Europe or outside the United States who immigrated, they might not know the specific ship that their ancestors came over on. They might not know the specific country. Adoptees, there's people out there who were adopted and they don't know their parents at all. So DNA and genealogy research really, really, really helps there. So everyone has their Native people looking for like whether they have Native American ancestry. So genealogy helps there too.
Yeah, I mean, just as a little tidbit in my research, I was seeing that just in the past couple of days, actually, a murder was solved by utilizing some of the principles that exactly what you were doing. When I searched genealogy in the news, a whole bunch of articles popped up about how helpful this information has been in ways that we couldn't even imagine. So that's one of the reasons why I've been fascinated by it. I definitely want to search my family history, just because we don't have a lot of those passed down stories. At least they haven't been passed down to me. So very cool. What have you learned or uncovered about yourself in doing this work? Like, how has your perception changed?
So I think that so what has changed for me, or what I've learned about myself, is that um, I believe that it's helped me to see why I'm here on this planet. Like, all of us have been given talents, and that's plural, not just one, talents. And we have to discover those talents and then figure out how to use those talents to serve. Like, that's why we're here. Like, there's no other reason. We're not here to
Agreed.
collect as much money as we want, or that's not why we're here. We are here to figure out what our talent is and use those to serve. And I think that what I've come up with is that um, my way of serving is helping people to connect themselves to themselves. Because we're always out here, outside looking for, but when you connect inward, it's a whole nother kind of beauty that um, I'd like to help people experience. And genealogy is just one of those ways of doing that.
It's so amazing to me how people come to that conclusion that we are absolutely here to be of service and to utilize our talents. I actually came to find that out in my life through AA. So it's interesting that, you know, it's just so fascinating to me how we kind of all come to these same conclusions. Beautiful, beautiful. So I mean, I guess my next question off of that is just the power of knowing where you come from. Are there any examples that you can give in your searching in your family history or of someone else's where that was kind of prevalent? Like you can see that the power of knowing where you come from made a change for you or for someone else.
So yes, most definitely. You had added to the other question like perspective, right?
Yes.
So how my perspective has changed. I think that kind of feeds into this question. Um, Perspective wise, you know, when you study yourself, hopefully there's a change, right? And for me, um, genealogy and knowing more about who I am and where my place in time, my ancestors, that has helped me to feel a lot more grounded. Um, and that's what we all need. Like, I feel like I have as much right to be anywhere at any time. There's no one going to tell me where I belong because I know that my ancestors have done a lot to make whatever we have here what it is. My ancestors were builders. They've done things. They weren't like, you know, you won't find them as stars or, you know, they're not that famous person, but they were solid people. And that makes me, that carries down. They say that there's generational trauma, that you take trauma from one generation and you bring that down. You also bring down that groundedness. And if we just all kind of reach out for that, wow, the power that has.
I just love the way you speak. I'm like, I could just sit here and just hear these words all day. Um, in searching your own family, can you share some of that experience? Anything in particular shocking or moving?
So yeah, there's so much to shocking and moving when you do genealogy. For
I'm
me,
like, tell me everything. I want to know it all.
For me, like I told you, my cousin used to go down and he would bring back these documents. Like, you know, he couldn't bring them. He didn't have a cell phone. They didn't exist. He couldn't share it on a computer or anything. He physically brought these documents back and they were really big, like large pieces of paper that he had to go to the county courthouse to get. And one of those documents was a deed. And deeds are for the transfer of property. And the property that happened, this deed was from 1858, and the property happened to be my ancestors. And so, you know, that is like for a researcher, it's just like a eureka moment when you find your people with their names and their cluster on that paper. And so it had listed my ancestor Lucy, she was an infant. It had her siblings, it had their names, it had their ages, it had her mother, and it also had listed slaves for life. She was an infant. She was a slave for life. And not only her descendants, me, me, slave for life. That document wasn't just about her. It was about me too.
Right.
It was about the condition that they felt that I should have been in. And man, for life.
Yeah.
You have no way out for life, right?
It's incredible the stock that we come from. I mean, I don't know everyone in my history, but just knowing the general history, just that rich stock that we come from. I just did another episode about comedy.
Mhm.
And one thing is that within like African American culture, we've just been through so much. one of my theories is why Black doesn't crack is because we have the ability to really laugh through it and live through it because
Yeah.
we've just seen so much. And, you know, what you were saying about generational trauma and passing that down. Do you think that can you kind of go a little more into that? Do you think that there are things that we're still feeling right now from actual slavery?
Most definitely. Um, the same way, because that's like you say, people didn't talk about it, right? Those stories did not pass down. And so when you hold things back, you're not dealing with it. So that's generation after generation of not dealing with slavery and what that all meant. And so what the specific impacts of that right now, I'm not, thinking about that. But yeah, there are people, like I have a friend who told me, he's a politician, and he told me about trying to help people by building up a basketball court that was torn down, was going to put lights on it, put bleachers around it. And they was like, we don't want that. And he was like, and I'm going to put a fence over here, so if the ball, bounces, it won't go out into the street and the kids won't run. Oh, you trying to fence in the Black man? Because all they saw was a white man coming into their area and telling them what he's going to do for them. And I asked him, I said, can you think about how that might look? And so there's a lot of things that, because if it's not dealt with, it's going to still be there. So definitely there are things that we are still dealing with, and it's all groups. Think about more recently the Holocaust and what the survivors and their children, that's almost, they still live with that today.
Right. It's so interesting. I mean, in the news right now, we have there's been several shootings, just a lot of animosity. And while you would think that we've gotten further, it just seems like literally we're in the exact same space. And you're speaking to that, in that we have not dealt with a lot of these things. I mean, you can speak to somebody about slavery and it's almost like, well, get over it. Get over it. But I'm sure for you, you can actually see the historical, like the documents and the actual proof where it's like, no, these are systems that have been set up to be exactly like this.
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot of us get that opportunity to see these documents and be impacted and see things like slave for life.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Like something as small as where they set up the and we haven't talked about whether or not your show is evergreen or not, and if it's okay for me to bring up this current event, but something as simple as where they place the testing sites for COVID. They
okay.
had the COVID testing sites on the waterfront. Well, where's the hotbed of all the people having COVID? In East Camden. Put the freaking testing sites in East Camden. And they finally said, oh, let's move. So there is a disconnect. And whether that has something to do with slavery or not, really it's poverty and the people who aren't impoverished and the people who are here to take care of them. Walk in their shoes and put in a policy that follows their journey. How are they getting downtown to the freaking waterfront?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Right. And I'm sure, you're talking about Camden. I'm sure that Camden is just an example of what's happening across the country.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It just, like I said, it just feels like we haven't progressed as much as you would think that we should have or could have. The young man that was basically, I don't know if you saw the scenario, but it was, the young man was basically trapped in between two cars and really lynched. And I'm sure you've seen documents. Actually, would you be able to speak to that? Have you seen any documents where there was like specific violence against African Americans or anything? Because I see a look on your
No,
face.
because you're actually bringing up what I was actually going to speak on, as far as two things, violence against African Americans, as well as how far we've come. There is a collection of records called the Freedmen's Bureau records, and it is the largest collection of records that documents African Americans during Reconstruction. So that's right after the Civil War, 1865 to 1872, 76 to the end. And when those records came out, I was all over them. I was in that archives looking at that microfilm, pulling records, trying to see all the different record types. And I gotta tell you, there was I did not sit down at that microfilm reader without tissues. And I had to get up on a regular basis to go outside just to get some air, because the amount of violence that people had to endure was unreal. It was unreal. People's children being taken. There was like this big thing about apprenticing. There's whole books of apprentice. You think apprentice, that sounds great. Teach my child a skill so that they'll be able to go out in the world and be an owner in this new world as a free person. But it was abused. You know, these planters who used to be owners would take the children go to the court and say, you know, put down Bessie Mae's 5 children because they're going to apprentice for me.
And she, like, that, obviously you have no rights of,
Right.
wow.
So yeah, and as far as how far we could have come, the whole time I was looking at that, I was thinking, you know, that's when we could have gotten it right. That was when Black people were freed. That is when we could have gotten it right. And then 100 years later, 1965, we have the Civil Rights Act. Another chance 100 years later where we could have gotten it right. And I think, as far as when we come to how far we've come, I believe that at each time that we tick it up a little bit. I mean, we cannot allow these 3 years to erase the 8 years that we had before.
Right.
We have very short-term memories. Right now, think about it. The screamers are the ones that are always the ones that we hear because they're screaming the loudest, right? And so I have hope because I believe that there are so many good people out there. We just have to figure out how to, you know, change the tide. And I believe that we're going to kind of hopefully not go too far to the other side, because that's what we do. Go too far to the other side, which is evidence of what we're doing right now. Maybe we can find a middle.
Right. Right. It is incredible. I mean, in learning about things like Black Wall Street and the attempts of the Black community to try to rebuild, segregate themselves, or try to establish certain things, and those establishments are destroyed. It's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You try to work and operate within a system and kumbaya and be, you know, just try to make it work.
So let me tell you about Lawnside. As far as the African American community, they're the only African
See,
American.
you're the bomb. You're the bomb. I'll see you forever.
Talk about a community wanting to stay together. So they are this enclave of African Americans together. And at one time, this area was called, it was more township area, and it was called Center Township. And that included like Magnolia, Belmar.
And you're talking about South Jersey.
Yes, in South Jersey, thank you. And all those towns in that area, and they were called Center Township. And when they decided that each town was going to be their own thing, they wanted to just break Lawnside up. And Lawnside was like, whoa, wait a minute. You will not piece us up and break us up. And they insisted on being together. And there you can see in the newspapers, like everyone talks about Lawnside, about, you know, there's this one track story about Lawnside, but when you look at the history of Lawnside, you see repeated um, um, struggles and victories of that town saying, we're going to stay together. And this is how we're going to handle things. When the influenza came through, they tried to, you know, treat them in a different way as if they were responsible. But as a community, African Americans, a very strong African American community, they said, no, this is how we're going to handle things. So there's always, wherever there's that negative thing, there's always that story of people who are saying, no, this is how we're going to live, and you're not going to tell us. So, yeah.
Based on your search, just in what you've seen and learned over the you know, the course of time that you've been doing this, what do you think a successful model would look like? Have you seen within history where there, I mean, because just for me in my research, this is what I'm reading right now. Where do we go from here?
Oh, okay.
Martin Luther King. And what basically, in my interpretation, what began happening is after civil rights, it's like, you know, bills were passed and things like that, but the enthusiasm of actually executing things and just it just didn't go where he thought that it would go, when he realized that it's really economic inequality that is like the next phase. So just to say, in your experience of, you know, research and things like that, what are your thoughts? What do you think is going to be the thing? Do you think separation, or do you think kind of forging within the system? Just out of curiosity.
You said so much for me. It's been
Oh!
so one, I cannot say what a perfect community would be. I would say the perfect communities are the communities that I grew up in, which was East Berlin and Lawnside. So those are examples of perfect communities. But wow, there's so much there. So I would say that in a way, I beg to differ on where we've come. I would say that Martin Luther King and that civil rights era changed things, not just for African Americans, but for everybody, anybody disadvantaged. Think about people in wheelchairs. Think about people who need a something special in order for them to take part and be a full part of society. Think about where women have come. Of course, there's so many places that we need to go. Think about the damn, the little divot in the curb so that wheelchairs can get up. You know what I mean? We ain't have that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to say Martin. It's his inclusion, his story, his desire to allow everyone the opportunity to have a life. I think that has changed, not just for Black people, for all people, and not just for people in this country. Look around at how the Olympics used to look. We looked like everybody, like we had a bit little of everybody. And you could tell the other countries, they were monos, they all looked alike. But now, if you look at other countries, they look like us.
Right.
We are a mixture trying to figure out how to live together. That's huge. That's huge. That's what our ancestors were a part of. That's what we're a part of. It is not an easy thing, but guess what? We showed that it can be done. It's not pretty, but each time we just there's so much more to be done. I agree. And I try not to be a Pollyanna, but look at what we've accomplished. I am so freaking proud of what Black people have done and fought for, and what the people who have come and decided to help them to fight, because we didn't do it by ourselves. That's another thing we got to realize. Us, our little 10%, we needed help doing this. So stop.
I say that to people a lot. Because I find people getting frustrated with well-meaning people who, because they don't have to confront something every day, it's just not there, that click, that little thing where they're just like, oh, that's still a thing, like, no. But I get it, and you cannot do it alone. You need a group like the group that is supposedly oppressing you. You need a portion of those people to be on your side.
And the majority of the people that they think are oppressing them are the people that are on their side.
A lot of people really just don't know. They don't have opportunities to meet people like you who can say, no, there's a historical basis for this. This is not brand new. This has happened before.
About this. You know, the only thing that helped me with COVID is history. Listening to a historian who researched pandemics. And she said, you knew that you were getting a pandemic under control is when the hospitals could manage the intake. That was the first thing that helped me to take my temperature down, because I said, okay, historically, we're moving in the right direction.
Right.
And look at New Jersey and New York. We are decreasing. We are decreasing. And I'm
Yeah.
so proud of everybody because
I'm so proud of everybody. I mean, yes, you're always going to have people that are going to do their own thing, but for the most part, I mean, people have really done almost the impossible. Like, yes,
and
be
guess
proud.
what? Guess what? We've done it with technology that we've had for, this isn't new stuff. For some reason, we've been forced to use technology. And guess what? If we would have used this technology the way that we're using now, by this time, we would have had stronger VR where we'd be able to actually walk into stores without being there.
Don't, that's a whole nother show, girl. Don't even get me started. Listen, do not get me started about that VR because people do not, they're sleeping on it. And
Not now.
that
They're
is
not now.
going to be everything.
I guarantee you, every retail store that has money is beefing that up because people need the ability to have a better experience.
Travel, all of that. Yo, you want to go on it?
Don't you
That's,
remember Will.i.am beamed himself into CNN? That was like over 20, that was at least, it was an election period. It was over a decade ago. He beamed himself into CNN.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for my hovercrafts. I'm ready for it, boo. So, all right. I want to search my history. I want to, get started with learning. You've done a quick start,
Yeah.
which is phenomenal. And we're going to share all that information. But just what are some of the first steps? And tell me a little bit about the quick start that you created.
All right, so I have a show, Genealogy Quick Start. You can go to it on YouTube. Just Google Genealogy Quick Start, genealogyquickstart.com, YouTube, and Facebook. So a lot of people are taking DNA tests. They want to know their history, and they're not people who want to go and sit in dusty archives and, hang out with those folks. They want to know it now. So I created a quick start. So if you look at my online quick start online, that's what I'm going to share with you. Basically, you want to think about 1940. Everybody has a line that they're interested in. So you want to think about 1940 in the line you're interested in. Who was living, where were they, and who was in the household? For me, that's my grandma Maggie. She was in Alabama, and she would have been with her father and her brother Harvey. And so I'm going to take that information. I'm going to go to the 1940 census records. And we know the census is taken every 10 years. So you can just ride those census records back every 10 years. So I go in 1940, I find her. And then I go to 1930 and I look for her again. And then in 1920, she's not living. So guess what? I have to look for her dad. So I just work my way back in time. And if you're African American and you want to look for an enslaved ancestor, you want to at least get them back to 1870 and try to find out everything you can about them. You also want to look at vital records like birth, death, and marriage records. You want to look at census, birth, death, marriage. You want to just fill that in for your ancestors, their brothers and sisters, your aunts and uncles. Get as much of that as you can. And that's how you get started with genealogy. You have to talk to people to get information. I call it, hey, grandma. You guys just say, hey, grandma.
Yeah, yep.
Who's your mom? Who's your dad? What was your mom's maiden name? So you got to do the hey, grandma, and then you just ride those census records.
Are there any disclaimers that you give people, like, just to let you know, this process is going to be like this, or, anything that you're telling people just to be mindful of when they're starting the process?
So in general, who your ancestors are and what your ancestors did is not you. people get real kind of like there's this shame thing.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I want to
Wow.
actually do an episode on shame. People have some shame about their identity themselves, or the shame of their ancestors, things that they've done, who they are. So I would just say enjoy the process, and just learn about who you are, learn about your journey. Sometimes it's hard to find stuff. Don't get caught up in, oh, they didn't document, they forgot the Black people, or my courthouse burned down. Well, you know what? Your courthouse burned down, but there's other records, some other place for your people.
Yeah.
Just believe that it's out there, that there's something for you to find. If you don't know anything, take a DNA test, and that'll let you know there's people, that you're not a Martian, that there are people out there that you're related to. You have a family.
And that's across any background. This is information that everyone should really be diving into if they don't have someone in their family who's already done it.
Exactly.
So as you know, this Sunday is Mother's Day.
Yay, happy Mother's Day.
Yes. Did you want to give a shout out to anybody?
To my mom. My mom is a wonderful mom. My mom actually helped me to be a researcher. My mom said to question everything. I think that she kind of wished she would have told me that when I was a little older, because I questioned everything. Go in your room. Why, Mom?
Oh, you were that kid?
Yes. And so, and understand where you're getting your information from. So my mom she is a fabulous mom. I love you, Mom. Thank you for growing me to be a strong sister woman.
Yes.
And who I am. I appreciate that.
Yes, we all thank you for that. Listen, I have to have a part 2 with you at some point. We got to get back together again. This has been absolutely amazing. I'm going to share your links and, places where people can find you. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us, or anything that you'd like to say before we depart?
Everyone needs to know who they are. If you don't want to know for yourself, learn for your children and your grandchildren. Everybody deserves to know who they are. That's how you become a whole person and a contributing, positive member of society.
Absolutely. Shamele, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This was so much fun. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And keep me abreast of any projects you have. Definitely would love to be a part.
And let me know if I could look up something for you.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm definitely wanting to start that process for sure. I need to make the phone call, like you said, just start calling. We've had a lot of deaths in my family, so it's like hard kind of piecing things together, but this is super important.
It is.
Awesome. Well, you enjoy.
Thank you.
Be blessed.
Well, that's the show for this week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Every listen means so much to me. You have no idea. All of your participation, the comments that you send me, it really means the world to me. This is exactly why I do this show. Shamele, thank you so much for being a part of the show, and we will absolutely be having you back. That was fantastic. Make sure you do me a favor. If you haven't subscribed already, do that now. If you haven't told anyone about the show, do that as well. Guys, thank you so much again for listening. Be blessed. Thank you for listening to Spicy Pecan Podcast. This is a Wonderful Me Media production.